Boys and girls, welcome back to a 5-year hiatus of Josh and I getting on a camera together to talk about sports. Mark, we miss you, but not really. You don't know shit about college basketball, so you don't belong on this.
Sit your ass down.
Play your position, player. Mark is the 13th man on a college basketball team, but
Great manager.
yes, hell of a team name creator.
You need a rebounder and shoot around. You got one.
So Josh and I are here to talk about the greatest thing in sports, I would say, the Ncaa tournament. Brackets were released last night, and we wanted to just we've been giving out picks for about 2 months now, but wanted to make a video about this because this is a big time and kind of just go over our first initial thoughts on what we look at when we look at the brackets. We're gonna give out some picks, obviously not today. Want to kind of dive in deeper to these team matchups, but as it sits right now, we just wanted to go over what we see. And so what we're going to do is just kind of go region by region through the tournament, just kind of make our way through and just, hey, this jumps out at me. I like this matchup. I don't like this matchup. This is one-sided. It's not. And we go from there. And that's it. You got anything to add, Josh, before we start?
This is the greatest day ever. Brackets come out. I mean, this is college basketball dream right here.
Let's do it, man. We're going to start in the South region because that's what the bracket says to do. So I'm going to put a little scroll here on the bottom for everybody to take a look at. That's the picks there. And we'll go to the first matchup that we have to go to. You got Auburn, number one team in the country for most of the year. They looked at most of the year. They had some spots where they didn't look like it. But they get Alabama State or I can't even remember who the other team is.
It's St. Francis University.
St. Francis, PA. They took out the Shocks of Long Island.
That's Shocks.
That's how they got here. Any surprises in this matchup at all?
In this matchup, no. This is a get right. Can't believe we lost type of deal in this SEC tournament. Bruce Pearl is pissed. That team's going to be practicing really hard. They need to keep their eye on the ball and focus on that this is going to be a whole tournament, not just let's get all of our aggression out of one game, because they're going to get a lot of aggression out in this game.
Because what we've seen typically from one seeds most of the time is like this is a 30-point just drubbing right out of the gate, but it gets you right. It gets your 6th, 7th, and 8th guy on the bench getting some minutes in case they're needed in deeper games. It gives everybody confidence going into the next game. So
they need to get together. This team kind of looked like they were falling apart in that Tennessee game. They did not look like they were cohesive at all. So they need to get it together.
They did that loss at Ole Miss was the same way to me. It just felt like this team had so many chances to run away and be like the prohibitive favorite in this tournament. They still might be to a lot of people, but as it sits right now, they do need to get it together, I think. But I don't even think we need to pencil Auburn into the next round. We can put them in Sharpie.
Yes.
They should easily go through whoever this matchup is. And I do think it's probably going to be an intriguing game between those other two teams when they play on Tuesday night. St. Francis plays really slow. So, maybe they make it through, but these teams are just too small to compete with Auburn.
Yeah, no, there's and usually in the years you go like, those 16s, those 15s are catching up. They're catching up. This is not going to be the year where they're catching up, I don't believe.
I don't think so
either.
Top
heavy of this league and just the country overall with these teams is too much of a difference between them and the low seeds coming in.
Right. You just hope they don't take each other. They don't take these games too lightly, and something
sleepwalk first half and then just blow them out in the second.
Right, which could easily happen. You never know. So, but we'll get on to the next one because that one just seems pretty straightforward. Not much to go into about it. The 8-9 matchup in that side is kind of intriguing to me. You got Louisville, who made it all the way. Listen, they had a 19-game improvement from last year. And they're prohibitively a good basketball team. Just I don't know what happened last year. Nobody bought in. They couldn't. I have no idea. Just that thing imploded so fast.
Yeah.
But they got it back together, and kudos to those kids. I think bringing in Chucky Hepburn is a gigantic.
It changed the culture of that defense that day because they played no defense last year.
Right.
So
you have a
change everything.
and you have a real floor general, which
Yeah.
we know in college basketball, that's what it takes to win, especially in March. You got to have a guy who's poised that can handle the game. So they made it pretty far. And Creighton, despite having two dudes come back who are like 100 years old, I feel like Kolkbrenner and Ashworth have been playing there for, I don't know, 15 years.
I mean, since
Ashworth's
probably
got a whole Ashworth has a whole family. You've seen that, right? The picture of him and his wife with his kid in the backyard. It looks like something from a Sears catalog, and you're like, "That's a college basketball."
well, the kids celebrate wins, and he's out with the coach and having a cocktail.
That's what I mean.
Yeah, talking about family stuff. He's got more in common with the coach than he's got with his own teammates.
He's been buying that team booze for a couple of years now. He's the guy. But when it comes to basketball, what are your thoughts on this game? What are you looking at real quick?
It's a great. I mean, it's a fantastic matchup. I've been a huge Creighton guy all season. It's crazy that Louisville got an 8 seed. I think that's the surprise to a lot of people. I mean, just getting to the ACC championship game, the season that they had, all the improvement they made, and then boom, you got an 8 seed. And that, but I think that they got a good draw when they're at home. Basically, they're in Lexington. So
yeah, which that's
nuts.
That's like the reward back for them being an 8 seed. Because
sorry, we gave you an 8 seed. You have to drive 10 miles.
Right. I think you and I don't believe that they're an 8 seed.
No.
I'd probably put them more as like a 6 if you're asking me. But I mean, that's your reward. Then you get to play the very first game of the conference,
12-15
tournament. You get the kickoff, and again, you don't even need to leave until Wednesday night. If you don't want to, you can sleep in your own bed and get up and go to the game in the morning.
Go right to the game. Go to the meetings. Take all the press conferences, and then just go right. It's a normal day for them. It's as normal as it gets when you're playing that close to home.
So when it comes down to that, you think that's the advantage in the game? Really,
I think that's Louisville's biggest advantage. I think because Creighton is not Creighton as a 9 seed. They're better than a 9 seed. They played in a tough conference. They took a lot of losses to some big teams, St. John's, a lot of good teams in that conference that you're going to beat each other up. They kind of got the short end of that stick getting a 9 seed, but this is going to be a great matchup. They shoot a lot of threes. They kind of rely on the 3 a lot. They're decent 2-point shooting team. They defend the 3 a lot, but they can't defend the paint a lot. And that's the thing that Louisville does. Louisville attacks. They love attacking.
They're tough inside.
They get to the free throw line a lot. They need to get to the free throw line a lot. If Louisville wants to win the game, they got to get a lot of free throws.
Right, and Louisville probably will look for that to be their advantage because they don't want to get into an up and down track meet with Creighton.
Early games too. I mean, it's just they got whoever's ready in the first 5 minutes of the game is probably going to have the biggest advantage.
Yeah, and that's one of those games where if you lose grip on it early in the game, it's going to be, especially for a team like Louisville, it'd be tough to get back into a game if you fall behind early. So I like Creighton in this game particularly. I see, just looking at the initial spread, that Louisville is favored, and I think that has to do with everything with the home court, like you were saying. It's got a high total in the game. And again, these are things we'll get into later, but just initially looking at them, I would very lightly in pencil put in Creighton into the next round.
I think Creighton is just battle tested. They know what it's like to play on the road in front of a hostile crowd. They do it in the Big East all the time. So I don't think that the crowd is going to get to them as much as people would expect them as close to home as Louisville is playing.
That's another good point too, because like looking at it, I know that Louisville doesn't want to shoot the 3, but they shoot a high percent. They shoot a lot of threes. They shoot over 40% of their shots are from 3, but they only make like 32% of them. So if they fall behind and the crowd can't keep them in the game, like you're saying, it could get ugly.
It can get ugly.
I could see Creighton scoring 90 points against them if they're on.
So Creighton, as a team, probably not the greatest free throw shooting team, but those big 3 that they have on the court most of the time,
right? Who you're going to end up fouling in game situations like that. So
they're all 3 of them are 80% or above.
But that's early, a fantastic game, I think, for the tournament. So we'll go to the next one. This is you got your Big Ten champion Michigan versus a team that most people aren't going to know anything about. If you're not like Josh and I, if you don't stay up late nights watching college basketball, because that's the only time you're ever going to see this team play, and they absolutely throttled their conference.
Yes.
UC San Diego, the Tritons, right? I want to say
Tritons. The Tritons.
they can score the basketball.
Yes.
With the best teams in the country. And again, they're going against smaller teams, and Michigan is going to be something different for them to handle. The kid from FAU who transferred over, Golden, like that's just going to be tough for them
Vladimir.
inside. But and I know when this first came out last night, Josh and I called each other. I call him. The second he picks up, we both say upset at the same exact time, and it's as soon as they announce that game. I still feel that same way. Josh says he may have changed his mind.
You gave me a night to sleep on it a little bit, and it's. I mean, I like UC San Diego a lot. I just think that the one Michigan, the knock on Michigan is that they turn the ball over a tremendous amount of times.
Right.
That is their Achilles heel, and it's lost them all of their games. This tournament, the Big Ten tournament, is the only 3-game span where they just really took care of the basketball, and you can see the potential that this team has, especially with Coach May having the tournament experience he has, to go through a tournament and not have to turn the ball over a lot. You see what kind of production they get from their guards and their big guys when they're keeping the ball in the possessions and they're making everything a positive possession. You can see what they can do in a game situation where they're just taking care of the ball. That's all they need to do is take care of the ball. But if they don't take care of the ball against a UC San Diego, it's not going to be a pretty sight for them. And I think that the more you talk about the game, the more I'm on UC San Diego. The more I kind of pay attention to what just took place in the Big Ten tournament, recent bias, and then just knowing what they did in the beginning of the season and the non-conference going the record that they did. But once they got into tournament play, they just kind of lost their guard plays, just kind of lost the skills of taking care of it and everything like that. But the more I talk about it, the more the instant that I saw that matchup on the screen, I was like, that's an upset. That's UC San Diego all the way. And I'm back into that. Overnight, I was kind of like, Michigan, what they were just doing, if they could just keep doing what they weren't doing it all year. I can't just expect them all of a sudden to just turn into that team that everyone's, that's who they should be. UC San Diego's been doing this all year. 30 wins, same way. They're not going to stop doing what they do.
They may have gotten, you think they may have gotten hyped up by the conference tournament itself, and the teams that they're familiar with. They've played these teams twice. Yes. A lot of those teams, you know what I mean? And finally you're looking at it like, hey, I know how to beat this team. Like, obviously Wisconsin was blowing past everybody and Michigan just dragged them. And that was their way to beat them, is to slow down Wisconsin from scoring 80 points because they were doing it to everybody.
And that's the thing, because they are known that they were winning a lot of games by scoring as many possible, and that's where the turnovers came. The more you sped up the game, the more they scored, but the more mistakes they made. And then you go against a team that's going to counter on your mistakes, then you're not going to have that many opportunities to move that score up on your end.
Yeah, I don't see Michigan's defense being enough to slow down UC San Diego from putting up points. The total's at 140, which I think is indicative of the game Michigan wants to play. But and they're favored, Michigan as well, and rightfully so. They're the 5 seed. I get it. As far as Vegas goes, they're going to capitalize off of a big brand like Michigan, and people are going to be like, who the hell is UC San Diego? Absolutely, Michigan, hammer, hammer, hammer. I'm not on that boat. The more you're talking about it, the more I'm reading into it. And again, I'm going to get into stats heavy for the next day or so before we really give out our actual picks for the game. But I mean, it's +3 right now, and I just don't see how you give points to this team against Michigan. But so for all intents and purposes of the video, I'm going to click on UC San Diego, and I'm going to say that's our first 12-5 upset. Usually, if you follow college basketball, there's 2 of those every year. We're looking for two 12-5s, 2 10-7s. And now the 13 and 14.
Those 13s the last couple of years have been turning up.
The 13s have been turning up. It's how great this game is and how great this tournament is that the parity has come to such a point where teams that are 13s can just, you don't even think twice about it. So let's get into one of those. Another game. We got Texas A&M, the mighty SEC, taking on the smartest team in the tournament from Yale. What do you like there?
I gotta say, I got PTSD when it comes to Yale because I mean, just I've bet them so many times in the past, and they always find a way to just lose my bet or lose the game or do whatever, and I hate. But they always show
Got
up
him
and
yesterday.
they,
Got him
no,
yesterday.
not yesterday. Yesterday was clutch. Yesterday was clutch. But they were going against another Ivy League team, so
We
it's
tried
like
to give that game away. They were like
yes,
16
it was
and Cornell
early. That
just
was
started
early. It was the first
raining
game of the day.
threes. Yeah.
First game of the day. And we always look at all season long. We've been looking at Texas A&M like they just can't score. They just can't score unless lost his name. Guard play in Texas A&M. Unless he's hitting shots, the third. Unless
Yeah.
he's hitting shots, that team just cannot find another way of scoring. But they
Taylor.
offensive rebound everybody.
Is his name Taylor?
Yes, Wade Taylor.
Wade Taylor.
Wade Taylor the third. They are such a great rebounding team.
Number 2 in the country in offensive rebounding.
That if they can get rebounds and make free throws, I'm not really worried about them making shots.
And if I didn't, so I can't pretend I watched Yale all the time, but I saw them 3 times, and yesterday was a big one for me.
Yeah.
Because I realized they got they're called the Bulldogs, and they got this kid as like a Malloy, I think his name is, inside, and the announcers yesterday are like, this kid needs to try out for the NFL. He's an absolute bully. Like he's built like Tyler Hansborough with 20 more pounds. He's just a solid. He's got almost zero basketball skill, but if he gets you in the post, he can get the ball out, and he's not their center. That's the thing. He's their power forward. And I feel like in these kind of matchups, you tend to think these smaller schools are smaller kids. They got like their centers 6'7". They just can't compete size wise inside, and that's where A&M is going to rebound on them, right? Is they're going to come in and take the ball away. Yale has Poldakis, I think his name is, this left-handed kid. I watched him play yesterday, and I would not be surprised if you see him playing with the big boys in the NBA. He has unbelievable skill, at least scoring the basketball. He reminds me of Luke Kennard so much. It's crazy, just like get his shot off whenever he wants, going the wrong way kind of thing. I like their size inside. The problem is they don't play any defense. And
it's not going to be. I don't think it's going to be a big deal.
I think this game could go either way. I think when I fill out a bracket, which is going to take points out of it,
yes,
I'm probably going to take Texas A&M because I don't need to worry about points. But I do think that Yale does have a chance to pull it off, and whatever the spread sits at in that game, I don't. Right now it's at 7.5. I think that's way too many points for Texas A&M to be laying against a team who can shoot the three like crazy.
Yeah. And this is a Yale team that defeated Auburn in the first round last year.
Right, exactly.
So they have experience.
They have these kids. The same kids are there. That's the thing. They brought all these kids back. They breezed through this conference. I know this conference is Ivy League is 10, but they're 13-1.
Yeah.
They walked right through everybody. I don't remember who they played non-conference. I know they had at least one non-conference game this year against somebody moderately decent. Because teams are not scared to schedule them. Let's see. They played UIC. They lost. They played Purdue. They lost by
Purdue
8.
Tough.
They lost by 8 to Purdue. They lost by 3 to Minnesota. So you're talking about
they beat Akron pretty well.
They're talking about power teams here that they're hanging with, at least. You know what I mean?
I mean, we'll get to them later, but they held an Akron team to 58 points,
which is crazy to think. Which is crazy to think. Just the Yale team I saw yesterday, and it may be recency bias, but as far as just talking about them quickly, I loved everything I saw about them.
Yeah.
And I think that they could compete in this game. I'm going to click Texas A&M through for the sanctity of what I'm doing here on the video. But Yale's watch out for Yale. And if they got through that game, you could be looking at Yale, UC San Diego in the next round, and some fireworks out of that game.
I think that was right off the bat with when they announced the bracket. Seth Davis was saying that right there. He goes, UC Davis Yale second round. I'm calling it right now.
Which I'm not surprised.
Didn't disagree with him.
I wouldn't be surprised by a pick like that. You know, these are not pushover teams anymore where you
No.
can just go through the bracket and be like, oh, you know who's making it to the next round? The top 8 seeds.
And the country's rooting for it because, I mean, the SEC got 13, 14 teams in the tournament.
Right.
So the country is like, oh, who's the SEC playing first round? I hope somebody beats them.
Right, and these should be picks you're looking at taking. If you're this is why you're watching this video. If you're watching it, is for insight onto who to take. If you're filling out a bracket, I would probably lean toward Texas A&M. But if you're trying to fill out a bet slip, Yale
7.5 now.
Yale might be that's a lot of
points.
Okay, let's go on to the next one. We got another SEC team. Yeah. Ole Miss is hosting the winner of San Diego State, who I know you like.
I love San Diego State.
San Diego State is taking on North Carolina, the last team in the field who probably shouldn't be in the field if their athletic director was not running the tournament. There's a lot of
pretty good position to be in.
Listen,
the overseer of the tournament.
Listen, guys, we already got the other 67 in. If you don't mind,
I wasn't allowed in the room.
Right.
But we had cocktails and coffee and dinner, and I talked to everybody.
Yeah, he said he was out having a drink of coffee when this was all getting decided. Yeah. He put their name in the hat. I'm sure that's what he did.
You guys want to be on this committee next year? You guys,
if your boss tells you, hey, maybe you should try to come in this Saturday, then you come in on Saturday. That's what he's telling you to do. So, first off, let's touch real quick on San Diego and North Carolina.
Yeah.
San Diego in years past, super defensive team. I think they've kind of transitioned a little bit away from that. It seems like they can score the ball a little bit better than years past, which is all North Carolina wants to do. So when you're talking about a play-in game between those two teams, do you like either one of those better than the other?
I like San Diego State more than North Carolina. To the point of, I think that the Mountain West is a much better conference.
Okay.
So they've gone against much better competition. They should be in this position, if not directly into the tournament.
Right.
North Carolina North Carolina hasn't beaten anybody. They played a ton of teams. They played a lot of top-notch teams. They didn't win any of them. The only game they won was against UCLA. That was it.
1-10 against the Quad 1, which if you don't know what Quad 1 is, those are the top teams based on strength of schedule, overall record in the country. And North Carolina won 1 out of 11 games against that group. So that's, not good.
The only thing I see Carolina doing is if an RJ Davis just, steps up and becomes a senior point guard for a top-notch program and takes over. But I just haven't seen it.
Right.
He's great.
I tend to agree with you. I'm going to roll with San Diego State for intensive purposes of getting that angle out of the way. So then if they get through, now you've got a team who just won a game on Wednesday. They're going to have to turn around and play on Friday against an Ole Miss team that's got some really nice wins on their resume.
Yes.
So how do you see that one going?
I like San Diego State. I like San Diego State to beat Ole Miss and move on to the next round. I think that they're going to be very much just in rhythm. They're going to play on that first game. A lot of the teams that play in that first game, they move to the next round. They're ready to roll. They go right into it, and they're ready to play. The other teams kind of just trying to get their bearings back. Oh, we just lost in our conference tournament. We're getting ready for the tournament. They're about to take another L, basically, because this team just coming off a victory is going up against you, and they play tremendous defense, and they slow the pace down, and they can score. And Ole Miss has got a lot of issues that they got to deal with.
One of the advantages that I see for San Diego State or any team in this position, really, at the end of the day, is that you're looking at a team that knows who they have to play if they win the game. And Ole Miss doesn't know who they're playing until that game is over. So you have to prep for two teams where where San Diego State, they're just playing North Carolina, but they know what the end game is. So there's no mystery in, hey, if we get through this game, where Ole Miss has a lot of time sitting around, standing around, not knowing they got to prepare for two teams and spending half their time worrying about a team that they may never see.
I got a lot of respect for Chris Beard as a coach. I think that he's going to get this Ole Miss team up and running as soon as possible. But I just think that they've come across a lot of struggles at the end of the season, and they're going against tremendous competition in the SEC. So of course but that game against Arkansas, I think they just got lucky because Arkansas should have won that game. It was an end of game shot that won it in the tournament. Arkansas didn't get to move on. They should have gone to overtime. Arkansas was hot in that last 5 minutes of the second half, but Ole Miss took it in a final buzzer beater shot and then moved on and lost, because I just don't think that they're kind of on the downturn than on the upside. You got to get hot this part of the season. They're just not hot right now. They're trying to figure out what their identity is going into this tournament. I mean, regular season, they can get away with a lot of things, but in the tournament, everything's that moment, that minute, that possession. You got to figure it out right there. And I just think a warmed up San Diego State team that's as talented as they are can just go in there and take that game.
Yeah, I think I agree with you. I mean, statistically, just looking at it while you were talking about it, like Ole Miss across the board has better statistics everywhere. Yep. They have 6 guys scoring in double figures. They don't rebound the ball as well. San Diego State, they share the ball better. They turn the ball over less. They shoot better from the foul line. So some of the key metrics, but I think that, like you said, that getting warmed up game is going to mean a lot in this tournament. And I would suspect if San Diego State is able to dispatch North Carolina, that Ole Miss is going to be favored by 2 or 3 baskets, maybe 4. They might be 7, 8. And again, the purpose of this video not only is to give our initial thoughts on these games, but then to kind of think about how are we going to wager, because that's really what this is about. I could click through this bracket pretty easily if I was just trying to pick winners and losers and move on. But the key emphasis at the end of it is when you take that into mind, are they going to blow them out? Are they not? And I just think a team like San Diego State, like you said, who's going to play a game, be juiced up, be ready to play, is just, it might be too much for Ole Miss. So we'll click them through. We got Iowa State and Lipscomb. Lipscomb's a nice story. I bet them a few times this year, but I don't see anything about that team that's going to allow them to compete with Iowa State. I don't know what you think about that.
Iowa State all season long has been one of the top-notch teams in the country. I know for a certain period of time, maybe a month and a half, they were top 3, top 4 in the country. And you got some talented guys on the team. Not only that, they're deep. That they recruited a lot of NIL guys in the offseason, and just the bench is very deep. So they're going to be without Gilbert. I'm not sure if he's going to be out for the whole tournament, but he's going to be out for this first weekend at least. But they have guys that can step up. They got Joshua Jefferson that's playing great.
That kid's playing out of his mind.
The guard play is playing great. They can score. They can play defense. You know, they don't have the advantage of being home because that Iowa State at home is just a juggernaut. But they're still – they compete. They're a Big 12 team. They compete very hard. I don't think Lipscomb has any chance against them.
I don't either. Lipscomb's best out of conference. Well, they've played some teams. They played Kentucky. Yeah. They lost by 30 to Kentucky.
Yeah.
They played Arkansas. They lost by 16 to Arkansas. They did beat a team who's in the tournament, Wofford. They did beat them by 9 at home, but just not a Duquesne is another team that they played. They just not a lot of out of conference experience that's going to provide enough, here for me to be able to get me to a point where I think that, I mean, they've got a guy who averages 20 and 8.
Yeah.
Okay, on their team. Fantastic. But if you're Iowa State, you're just going to come into that game, focus on that kid, and their team is going to crumble.
I'm stopping that guy.
And that's it. And everybody else, good luck, man. And you're talking about, like you said, you're talking about a team who could have easily, without injuries, probably been a 1 seed.
Oh, yes.
I just, without spending too much time on this game, Iowa State mows through them. The line is at 13. I don't even have a problem taking that.
No.
I don't have a problem laying 13 points with
that's
Iowa
low.
State.
I think it's because of injury, but that's low.
Right, and that's a Friday game, 1:30. So you've got a couple days to even think about it. Another day for them to get healthy. It's just not a great matchup for Lipscomb there. But
where is Lipscomb?
I don't know. That's a good question.
The game's in Milwaukee.
I don't think.
Lipscomb.
Where's Lipscomb University?
One of those words, man. One of those words.
It's a private Christian college in Nashville, Tennessee.
Nashville. Wow. Oh, yeah. That's right. I go to Nashville a lot. I see some signs now. I remember.
All right, Lipscomb. Well, they're
Oh, head back to Nashville.
head back to. There's bachelor and bachelorette parties going on all over the place for you guys to get part of. Get your kids down there. Let them have some
Jump
fun.
in there as fast as possible. We'll get some drinks.
Go to Aldine's and have some fun. All right. Our first 7-10 matchup, Marquette and New Mexico. Josh loves New Mexico.
I love both these teams.
Okay, so what do you like here? This is a tough matchup.
This is the toughest matchup in the first round for me to even look at, because I am obsessed with both these teams. I love Shaka Smart. I love Richard Pitino. I love their styles of play. I think that Shaka, when he got back to Marquette, got back to his VCU days, got back to his Florida assistant coaching days, like that pressing. But that's exactly what New Mexico does. And this is going to be a matchup. Like if you're watching the TV shows, ESPN, CBS, they're talking about the same thing I'm about to say. You got Dent versus Cam Jones. You got two of the best guards in the country playing against each other in this game.
That's what you got.
And that is going to be the matchup everyone's watching. And I just think that the Mountain West is not traditionally a good tournament team in the first round. Like their record is, I think it's 4-16, 4-15, or something like that. And there's three of those four wins were like the last year or two.
Right.
San Diego State made that run a couple years ago, and a couple teams won a game last year. I just love New Mexico. I think that they're the best team in the Mountain West. I think that all year they showed it. They score a ton of points. They play great defense, tenacious defense. They got a guard that can put up 30, 40 a game. This is going to be a tough matchup against Cam Jones, but I don't think Marquette has that X factor size that they used to have. Or last year they had the Oladipo. What's his name? Kind of the same name as Iguodala.
I know who you're talking about.
6'6", 6'7", 6'8", like just big body guy that can athletic come over. I don't see that guy on that team that was like the X factor. Like, hey, when all goes failed, that guy is just better than who they have. And I just think New Mexico is gonna take it. Mexico is gonna have to step on the gas and full throttle and score as many points as possible, because Marquette's going to try to make this a defensive one-on-one type game.
Right. So quick note on these while you're talking that I'm looking at too. Notable wins for Marquette. Purdue. That's it.
They beat St. John's once, right?
No.
They lost that 3 times.
3 times. They lost by 16. They lost by 2. That 2-point game was a good one.
Yeah.
We bet St. John's +3 in that one.
Yeah, I remember that.
That was the last time St. John's was an underdog against anybody. That's not happening anymore. And then they beat them by 6. They lost to Creighton. They lost to UConn twice. They lost to Iowa State. Now, if I flip over, now you're going to be even more impressed, because wait till you hear this list. I know you like New Mexico. In the tournament teams that they have played, they have beat UCLA, VCU, San Diego State, Utah State twice.
Yeah. That VCU game I watched live. I love that.
Those are all tournament teams that they beat that are good tournament teams. UCLA is a 6 seed.
The Mountain – for New Mexico to get a 10 seed, I think is more egregious than a Louisville getting an 8 seed.
Right. I think they might have been one of the bigger snubs I've seen.
This is a team that doesn't get any credit, any due respect, because they're on the West Coast, because they're in the Mountain West.
It's always been tough. Remember Gonzaga went through that forever?
Yeah.
That's what Gonzaga had to fight with. It's like no one's watching our games. We're beating up on everyone that we're playing, or we're playing good competition now, and you still don't want to give us any credit.
This is the Big East of the West. Like this is the same type of talented teams. They got Boise. I think Boise State should have been in before North Carolina. But
I do too. I 100% agree on Boise State.
I don't understand how they didn't get in. I guess
Utah State's a great team. Clearly,
great team. I guess the committee didn't want to have 4 or 5 Mountain West teams above ACC with 3 teams, so they gave them the even 4 and 4.
No, the guy is the commissioner, man.
I think the Mountain West gets disrespected completely. They have so many talented teams.
I do too. I'm comfortable with New Mexico. And just looking at our bracket, we got a 10, we got a 11, we got a 12 already through here on the first couple picks. So we're rock and roll. Last one on this side, and we'll move on quickly. Michigan State and Bryant. Is there anything in this game at all that we even need to look at?
I mean, you can take every every athlete named Bryant and put them on this roster, and they're not getting past Michigan
Yeah,
State.
if Kobe was alive, I don't think either beating this team.
I don't know.
Yeah, that might be
That's Black Mamba, man. That's the Mamba.
That's true. So somebody had an interview the other day. They were talking about. I think it was Alex Caruso. They were interviewing him on a podcast, and they said, "Hey, of the top 30 players in the NBA, if you put them on any one of these tournament teams, just any one player on any team, how easily would they win the tournament?" And he was just like, "It would be an absolute joke." Like,
yeah, I don't.
Any of the top 30 players and just stuck them on any one of these rosters, he thinks that's how much better the NBA is.
Oh, talent wise,
yeah,
these are grown men.
If you put Giannis on Lipscomb, they're probably gonna destroy whoever they play.
Yeah, who's stopping Giannis? I mean,
that's the whole point. He's gonna.
Who's the best players in the country right now? You got Broome and Auburn. You got Flagg and Duke. They're not doing anything to Giannis.
That's what I mean. That's what I mean. That's what he was saying. Is he's just like, could you imagine Steph Curry on one of these teams? He would score 70 points if he wanted to.
I just put Ja in this tournament. Just put Ja in this tournament and see the
he's probably top 30 in the NBA, so it's probably there. Yeah. Something like that. But yeah, SGA, what would he do against
SGA? Would absolutely dominate.
He would just go make layups the whole game.
I don't care what team he plays for, he's winning.
That's what I mean. So,
but that's the thing with this tournament. This tournament is geared towards if you got a dude, you got a huge chance to win the game.
Right. That's true. So we're gonna get off that conference now. We breezed through that side in just about 30 minutes, which is not bad here, and we're gonna move down to the West where Josh gets excited. Josh is a Florida Gator, and we're going to kick off with his team. I don't know why we even need to. I don't even know why we need to talk about this. You guys are just mowing. You guys have been. I hate to say this, I'm a Seminole, but this makes me a little bit sick. But you guys have been the best team in the country for 6 weeks straight. Like nobody is playing better basketball.
We went undefeated in the non-conference. And I think weren't even in the top 15 until like that last couple days before the conference play started. They just didn't get a respect. This team is as deep as it gets at every position. They got 4 or 5 guards they can throw out there. They have one of the best guards in the country in Clayton that just pulls up from 3 no matter where he is. You got Aberdeen coming off the bench.
Elijah Martin.
Elijah Martin has all the experience in the world when it comes to the tournament, and you got like 4, 5, 7 footers that you interchangeable. And then when Condon went down, the key was Micah coming in from injury and getting rid of his red shirt and playing, and that just made us even deeper. And we've gone against the best in the country. Auburn, gone against Alabama twice, gone against Tennessee 3 times. North Carolina just beat them. All of our non-conference played against great teams, beat them. This team is special. But now it's getting the tournament play. You know, we that Final Four in the SEC is as good as it gets. You had all 4 teams, the top 4 seeds. Could happen again in the NCAA tournament. They're all in each region,
right?
And Florida just dominated. They dominated. You knew they were going to score over 90 against Bama because they always do. And when they got Tennessee, that was just both games. I mean, it was the worst offensive game Florida's ever had against Tennessee. The worst offensive game Tennessee's ever had against Florida. And it was just something was going to happen, and Florida was just on a roll. They're on a roll right now. They're 5 straight games.
Remember we were talking about them going over their team total yesterday, and you were like, they dictated the game.
They dictated the game.
They made Tennessee play their style of basketball, and that was, against any team in this tournament. If you're going to try to score with Florida, you're going to have a real problem doing it.
Yeah, you're going to have to. The weakness that we've had, the games against Missouri, the games against Kentucky, were end of game turnovers.
Right.
And missed free throws. We haven't been doing that lately, but I mean, this is a tournament. It's a 1-game situation, and it can happen at any moment.
Yeah, and I like your draw, and we'll talk about that right after this pick. But clearly, we're taking Florida.
Obviously, I'm taking Florida. Yeah,
Florida's 28.5 point favorites. I wouldn't lay that many points. I'll tell you why real quick.
Norfolk's got a dude.
I may even they do, and I may even take Norfolk, and that's for this reason. They're out of conference. Well, the games they've played this year, they've played James Madison, Stanford, Grand Canyon, Baylor, High Point, and Tennessee. They beat High Point. They beat James Madison. They lost a close game to Stanford. They were within 15 points of Tennessee. Like they can hang around with some good programs here, and they do have two dudes. Brian Moore scores 19 a game for them. They got another dude scoring like 14 or 15. Obviously, you cut the head off the snake of that one dude, and your team just being so deep, you should run right past them. The total, I think, is around 153, and I think that goes way over. I think you guys score 100 points in this game.
I think it's such a short time span, but Golden, when he was at San Francisco, this is the type of teams, like fast-paced, big, tall rebounders, play defense in the paint. This is the type of team that he was building in San Francisco, but the talent level that he has building this team is just off the charts.
Right.
And I don't think any team has a 3-guard rotation or a 4-guard rotation that Florida has, and to throw their bigs out there like they do, it's going to be very difficult to beat them. And if they're rolling, because they're rolling right now. I mean, 4 or 5. I mean, I'd say it again, 4 or 5 straight over 85, 90 points.
Yeah, so
that's hard.
We're on Florida. Next one's going to be UConn and Oklahoma.
That's a big game.
I think that's UConn is obviously a letdown season for them based on just winning national championships.
Can't score. They don't have a dude they don't have a guy that can go.
And I thought Caravan was going to be that dude for sure. Even Neely, I like Neely a lot too.
He was hurt. He was hurt. Right? Yeah.
They just don't have a collective team, and I sneakily I think Oklahoma gets them.
I really like Oklahoma in this game. I think that they have a guy. They have an NBA player. It's a freshman, Fears, scoring 17 a game, 43%. He shoots free throws off the charts. Like, I think that guy is going to take over when he needs to take over, because UConn, if they can get their team aspect together and play like a team game, yeah, of course, it's UConn. They have the best coach in the country.
Right.
You listen to him. But it's still UConn. I mean, they're a scary team when it comes to if they can put it together. I just think Oklahoma is a little bit more talented when it comes to the guard play. And I love guards in tournament situations.
I think Oklahoma has the best player in the game, and that in a game like this, we've seen this before with Oklahoma when like Buddy Hield went on a run for them. Like when you have the best player on the court, if that guy is playing well, you're probably going to win the game in a game that has evenly matched teams.
And one of the things that I started noticing in the last couple of tournaments is, and even UConn was that the team I'm about to talk about, how I'm about to talk about Oklahoma is what UConn was the first year they won the national championship. This is a team that ran through their non-conference, just ran through it, undefeated through their non-conference, then get into conference play, and 13, 14 teams in the tournament, they're playing against a really good conference. So they went through Arizona, they went through Providence, they went for Louisville. All 3 of those teams were in tournament play, neutral court. They went through Georgia Tech, Oklahoma State, they went through Michigan. They're battle tested. They play some big teams. They beat all those teams. Then they come into SEC play, and they're going against some big dogs. It's going to be hard nights, especially your initiation into the SEC.
Right.
You don't know what it's like to play at Arkansas, to play at A&M, to play at Kentucky, at Missouri,
at Auburn.
Florida. It's a lot of wounds they're going to be, but now they're getting back into the non-conference play where this was like Clemson last year. Clemson ran through their non-conference last year, got into ACC play, took a bunch of L's, didn't get that great of a seed in the tournament, but then went right into the Sweet 16.
Right.
Because they're good against non-ACC opponents.
NC State did the same thing last year.
Absolutely, same thing.
Same thing. That when your conference is really good, like that's why you don't get penalized and you end up with a 9 seed, even though you have 13 losses. It's because they know who you're. I mean, their losses in their conference are against Alabama, A&M twice, Auburn, Tennessee, Florida, Kentucky. Like, come on, those are like elite of the
all those 5-game stretch they went through in January and February at A&M, home against Vandy, at Auburn, home against Tennessee, at Missouri.
Every one of those teams is like a top 6 seed that I just mentioned. They beat Arizona.
They took a break against LSU, where they lost to, but then they went to
South
Florida.
Carolina, like teams like that, where you're going to get a little breather. But and UConn's got impressive wins. They beat Baylor, they beat Texas, they beat Gonzaga, they beat Marquette twice. They lost a close game against St. John's. They beat Creighton. So they have some nice wins, and again, though, that conference beats up on each other. So they're very similar in that aspect.
Yes.
You get them into their conference and they struggled, and I don't mind it. So when we come out of it, I just think Oklahoma's got the better player.
I think in a one game situation, if both teams are at their best, I think I would lean UConn.
So would I.
But right now, just how they're
I don't know if we're
playing,
going to get the best UConn.
I think I'm gonna get the best UConn. And
I
they
don't
don't. I just don't have a guy I can be like, they need a bucket. That guy's gonna get it.
Right.
They don't have him.
Like, you remember how well Castle played last year in the tournament?
Oh, yeah. Stephen,
He turned it on. Now look at him in the
game.
NBA. The guy is all of a
Yeah.
sudden everyone's realizing how good he is at basketball. It's like, yeah, when you need me to be the guy because Wemby's out, I can do it. You know?
They lost a lot of those young guys that he probably thought was going to stay an extra year or two, and they lost a bunch of them.
Right. Solo ball has been good for them.
He's been good.
But I just don't think they're just. I think Oklahoma wins this a very close game, but I think
he
Oklahoma
was really good in those early games too against the Baylor, Texas Gonzagas. But
right. Well, you got to think these kids are AAU against each other their whole lives, you know. So, all right, let's jump to Memphis and Colorado State. I think we both feel the same way about this game now, knowing about the injury that Memphis has. And it's unfortunate because Memphis has had a great season. They pulled through for us yesterday, just like I needed them to. But the buck stops here, you think?
Yeah, I mean, again, like I watch a lot of Mountain West, and I just love these teams. And I think Colorado State is, other than New Mexico, I think New Mexico is top notch, like the best team in that conference. I think Colorado State towards the end of the season was on the way to surpassing all those teams. They move the ball so well. They're a great passing team. They get a lot of assists. A lot of people on that team contribute, and I just think that they're on fire right now. They're hot. They've won a bunch of games, and they took the tournament down. And I just like Colorado State a lot right now. I'm gonna be very big early on these Mountain West teams, and it's probably gonna bite me in the ass. But
I do like a shot on them early while you can. They're favored in this game.
Yes, as a lower seed, they were.
So when you see a 12 favorite over a 5, like you got to kind of understand why.
Oh, it's the injury.
It's the injury. It is the injury, but also I think it's a combination of what you said. Colorado is peaking right now, and Memphis has had some uninterested basketball games down the stretch. They have great wins. They beat Michigan State. They beat UConn. They beat San Francisco. They beat UNLV. They lost to Auburn. They beat Clemson. They beat Ole Miss.
It's one of those teams where it's like what I just said about Clemson and I just said about Oklahoma. They had a great non-conference, and then they struggled a bit in their in conference because they're going against teams that know them well, even though they had a lot of close wins.
Yeah, they won a tremendous. I mean, they're 16-2 in the conference, but their games were super close games.
A lot of close wins.
You know, so I tend to.
They have dudes that can score, but they're going to miss that second option.
And that's what I mean. We're taking into account what they did all season, but Hunter was there.
He was there.
He's not there.
No.
You got
Haggerty's not going to be able to put up 40 a game.
Right.
He could, but I don't think he's going to do it consistently.
He could. I don't think so either. And they expect a high scoring game here. The total opened at 144. It's up to 147.5.
Yeah.
So they're expecting both teams to get. Memphis wants to get into a track meet anyway with everybody. Danger looked so good yesterday.
Danger looked amazing. He was a force.
He's a scary kind of. He could be the number 2 that could be really scary, but
yeah, he could be the difference maker.
I do think Colorado State gets the job done, but I think this is right up there with one of the closest games I expect to see in the first round.
Yeah.
And then we're going to move on to Maryland and Grand Canyon. I don't know if there's much here. I like Grand Canyon a lot.
Me too.
I think I just like Maryland a lot more.
They're sneaky. They're a sneaky, really good team.
I think Maryland, that loss probably set them up to do better in this tournament than them beating Michigan at the end of that game and playing for a conference championship. I think that the sting is out of their body a day earlier. I don't think they're the best team in the conference.
No.
So I think them losing that game maybe gave them a little bit of perspective as our real goal is here in front of us. We're into the tournament. We're a 4 seed. Maryland hasn't been a 4 seed in a while. They've been a more down program. I would say, over the last decade than maybe they were in the 90s and 2000s. But it's good to see them back. I do like the way Grand Canyon plays. I do like the way Grand Canyon shoots the ball. But I think Maryland's too much. That's just my thought. What do you think?
I think the difference is going to be Derek Queen. I think that Maryland is just
second best freshman in the country, maybe.
Yeah, he's a big boy. He's a 6'10", 246 senior, but he can play. He's like a Zach Randolph. I mean, but with athletic ability that can run. And he took I think it was he grabbed a rebound the other day, went coast to coast right into the basket, and just didn't he could have just held the ball out, dribble it out for a little bit, but he went right to the basket and he just showed his athletic ability. A guy like that in a game like this, he can take over and just win it by himself. And I think that Maryland also has 4 other guys that can score, and they're a pretty good starting 5. Their starting 5 is really good.
Is he even 19 yet? Yeah, he's 19. Derek Queen. I was wondering. He's a freshman, right? I was wondering if
he's a freshman. I think he's from Montverde.
He is.
Yeah.
I was shout out Cooper Flag. I was wondering if he was even old enough to be just running a team like that, but I guess it doesn't matter. They've clearly, since the second half of the season started and they started to look to him to be the man.
Yeah.
He's delivered. In bunches. I like Gillespie too. I like their team.
I like their team a lot.
I do too, and there's no slouch on Grand Canyon. I think Grand Canyon, maybe this is a bad 4 matchup for them. If you give them a Purdue, I think they might beat Purdue. But Maryland,
wins, yeah.
I think Maryland's too much for them. 10-point game, maybe something I don't really attack too hard because I think that's probably about right. I could see Grand Canyon easily getting inside that number, and I could see Maryland scoring 90 points against them.
Yeah.
And blowing them out. So don't know if I'll bet that game, but I like Maryland to move on comfortably in that game. We go to Missouri and Drake. But Kendrick won the beef. No, he didn't. Drake
had a better song.
Drake had a better song. Anyway, let's move to this point here.
Yeah.
Pretty simple statement. Complete contrast. That's all this game is.
As different as it gets.
Missouri wants to just run and gun, and Drake is the number 1 defensive efficiency team in the entire country. Not in their conference, not as a mid-major, in the country. They don't give up points to anybody.
Great story, too.
Just fantastic. Missouri, the only thing I look at right away with Missouri is I feel like they're playing better team ball lately. I feel like night to night I don't know who's going to be the guy. It could be Caleb Grills, it could be Mitchell, what's the other kid's name that plays guard for them? I can't remember his name off the top of my head.
Robinson.
That's it. So they've got guys that can fill up the basket. And any one of them could go off for 25, and that might be their game. I don't know if Drake's style is too much for them, where if Drake doesn't turn the ball over and gets some semblance of offensive rebounds, I could see them winning this game. Drake can score the ball too. It's not that they can't.
They don't want to.
They don't want to. If you limit possessions in a basketball game, you're limiting the ability for a game to get out of hand. And if you're in a basketball game, you're always in the game because everybody knows there's a run coming at some point by everyone, right?
Yep.
And, they have the weapons to make a run. Missouri plays no defense. There's no secret about that. They're not out there trying to shut teams down in the 60s. So I think this game might be uncomfortable for Missouri.
I'm all Drake. Obviously, I'm an SEC guy. But I love Missouri. I think Missouri's a great offensive team. They can put up points in a hurry. Drake all season long has been the same team, same identity. They don't change. And they have a dude that can come out of nowhere. You don't expect it. Ben Sturtz.
Yeah, Ben Sturtz is a beast, man.
Just comes out of nowhere and puts up 24, 25, 20. You don't expect it. But in the late game situations, he's who they go to. And in a tournament situation, that's what you look for.
And he fills up the sheet. He's like
Fills up the sheet. He had 24, 4, 4, and 2 and 1 against Bradley.
19, 5, and 6 is what he averages.
Yep.
College basketball, that's tremendous when you're able to put up more than 5 rebounds and 5 assists and still be your team's leading scorer. Means you're finding, because there's not a lot, and especially for a team where there's not a lot of possessions in their games.
Shoots almost 50% from the field, 38 from 3, 80 from the free throw line, plays 39 minutes.
They don't take him off the court. He's a walking bucket. So even if this game is a 4 or 5 point game, I would favor Drake in that situation.
He doesn't foul. He does not foul.
It's just, I mean, Missouri clearly has the better resume. They beat Kansas. They beat Florida.
At Florida. They took that game. That was one of those games I tell you, Florida loses.
Alabama at home.
They turned us over in the wrong situations, and they took that game from us.
Close game with you guys. Well, semi-close. It got away late. You got a semi-close game with Kentucky. So, I mean, they've had some dogfights, but the point is their games are all being played in the 160s, 170s, 180s. And Drake's like, 61 to 59. Like, those are the games that they're playing. And people are going to think, oh, well, they can't score. They can score.
They can score.
They just don't. It's not their style of basketball. And I think for the sanctity of the bracket, again, this is going to fall into a Texas A&M situation for me. I'm probably going to select Missouri to go through because I think 8 out of 10 times they probably beat them. Maybe 7 out of 10 times they probably beat them with the style that they play. Now, Drake, the game being in Kansas doesn't really favor anybody at that point.
No.
And I think it's at 6.5 points. I think that's too many points. The over-under at 133 tells me Drake's going to control the game. Missouri doesn't play games in the 130s.
No, I think it's catered to Drake. I think Drake takes the game. I think they take the game because they're just going to play slow down, score when we need to type it. And I don't think Missouri is not prepared for a moment like this. Missouri's a regular I think they're just more so like a regular season team. I don't think they're a one game situation type of team. I don't think that they can.
And it was kind of what I was getting at.
What
I was explaining before too is that you never know who Missouri is going to be, like the player that it's going to be. Well, that's a problem. You don't have a guy.
Yeah.
You have a bunch of good dudes, and Caleb Grills has been that in a lot of big moments for them. But
he was out last game, wasn't he?
Yeah. I don't see him being the guy. He's a really good, but I think Mitchell is probably their best player.
Yes.
He gets his buckets inside. And if you're talking about taking Missouri off the 3-point line when you need baskets late in the game, they're not just looking to pile up 3-pointers. It's going to probably frustrate them. The style of play is probably going to frustrate them. So I'm okay taking Drake. If you want to, betting wise, I've already locked in Drake. I just did it this morning. So I don't see any other reason to say anything else about this one. It's probably another good game, though.
I think it'll be a great game. I mean, just like you said when we started talking about the contrast of styles, that's the type of matchups you want to see. Which style is going to defeat the other?
Right.
And this is those games we wait for in the tournament.
This is probably the biggest one of those. Yeah. I would say.
A lot of the other styles are kind of the similar styles. This is one of the very few that's like the exact opposite of what each other wants to do.
All right, Texas Tech and UNC Wilmington.
I just don't think Wilmington's good.
I don't either.
Texas Tech is great.
Wilmington's got one game that's notable on their schedule. They played at Kansas. They lost by 18.
I mean, they beat us a couple of times against Charleston in the beginning.
Their number 2 marquee win is against Sam Houston State. Which we know they came on at the end of the year, but they were a terrible team for most of the season. And they beat them in November when they were terrible.
Yep.
You got wins against App State. East Carolina's okay. Charleston Cougars.
That Charleston game, man. We bet that game.
I know. I don't see anything here. I don't want to get into too much. Texas Tech is exactly like Iowa State to me,
Mm-hmm.
and that they could have easily been a 2 seed. The ability that they played with, I just think they didn't show up in that Arizona game there in the conference tournament, and I think that they're better than Arizona. So I would.
Caleb Love just went nuts in the first
That's
half.
what I mean. Caleb Love
Texas
got
Tech
them behind the eight ball, and
yeah.
you forced Texas Tech to play a game that they didn't want to play. This is the highest scoring Texas Tech team in recent memory.
Yes.
They do score a lot more points than they normally do. You got 73 against Baylor, 82 against Houston. They took Houston out. Like I used to always say to you, they took them out into the deep end. Houston. They took them out into the deep end, bro. It's not where you want to be at. Houston does not want to be playing games in the 80s.
82 against Houston. I mean,
they
that's
held Arizona to 54 points in one of the games earlier this year.
They can do it either way.
That's what I mean. The other game they played with Houston was an 8-point game. So just to let you know, they've played the number 1 team in the country.
Yep.
I think Houston's better than Auburn. They basically played the number 1 team in the country tough twice and beat them once.
If Roberts is healthy, I think Houston's definitely better than Auburn.
Right, and you beat them at Houston.
Yeah.
So Texas Tech is just, they're no joke. And UNC Wilmington's got nothing to compete with there. It's a 15-point spread. I probably won't touch that one. 143-point total. That I don't know either, because we don't know if Texas Tech's going to hold them to 50 points or if
they can win anyway. So it's like however they choose to win that morning, that's how they're going to win.
Right. So I think that's an easy one. Sets up a potential Texas Tech Drake or Texas Tech Missouri game in the second round, which could be a phenomenal.
That's going to be fun.
Either way. Next game, you got Kansas and Arkansas, 2 teams I just absolutely do not like whatsoever. I'm not going to sit here and say that I think that Arkansas is better than Kansas, but for some reason, I think Arkansas hangs tough in this game. I think the coaching edge is on their side. You might like Bill Self more. I don't really. I think both of these guys are jerks, to be honest, as coaches. Like, they're not my favorite type of human beings. They've been fed blue bloods their entire life. So them as coaches, from what we know of them, is just like, oh, well, you're winning with the best players ever to come to your school. Like, Calipari has showed me, like, going to Arkansas and kind of revitalizing his coaching career, which I don't think he needed. But going there and still buying into winning and getting to have a competitive team in that conference, I don't know. Hunter Dickinson is 100 years old. He's still playing in this tournament. He's never done well in this tournament.
This matchup alone is like,
I don't like this game at all.
One of these teams is going to win.
I mean, I don't want to speak out of turn and just that's my feeling, and so I'm making you just not have a feeling on it or not. But this is a gross game to me. There's nothing about this game that I'm like running to even think about. I have to fill it out for a bracket.
That's basically who's going to lose to St. John's.
Right. Who's going to get embarrassed by St. John's is what I think is going to happen to one of these 2 teams. Arkansas has got the more athletic team, I think. They're going to want to get out and play a little.
Wagner's the better scorer. I think Kansas is going to be able to rebound, but Arkansas is going to have some bodies.
Yeah, Terrio is good. Terrio, how do you say his last name?
Was it Oterio?
I can't. They got Boogie Flan, too. I know they
got Boogie's coming back. He's not going to play. He's going to play like maybe 20 minutes, maybe.
Which is fine. Yeah, I don't. Kansas has better names and less productive.
They have Dickinson. They have Harris. They got the recruits. They got the big guys recruits in the last couple of years. I don't know what's going on with them this year. They are terrible on the road.
They beat Duke in March. That game was the one that Cooper Flagg fumbled the ball away towards the end of the game. I mean, beat them in November. Sorry.
They beat Michigan. They beat North Carolina. They beat Duke. But that was like the first 2 weeks of the season.
Right. They lost to Iowa State. They beat Iowa State. They lost to Houston twice.
West Virginia they lost to.
They split with Arizona. I mean, they're nothing special.
No.
You got an Arkansas. I mean, Arkansas beat Texas and beat Kentucky. Otherwise, they've lost to Illinois, Tennessee, Florida, Alabama, Texas A&M, Auburn. But these are close games. They lost by 4 to Alabama. They lost by 8 to Texas A&M. They lost by 7 to Auburn. They lost by 8 to Florida. Like they're at least being competitive in their games. I think he's getting something out of that team. If I got to pick a winner in this game, I'm one's called Arkansas and one's just Kansas without the AR in the front of it. I'll take the team without the AR in the front. I'll take Kansas, but I don't
See,
I don't
I'll take Kansas because they just, I mean, on paper, like KJ Adams, Hunter Dickerson, Zeke Mayo, DeJuan Harris, they have the dudes. They haven't been able to put it together. They're losing a lot of games on the road, especially at the end of the season. This is going to be a neutral court situation. Maybe they're better in these situations. They'll have a lot of fans. Kansas fans always travel. Where's this game at? This game is in Providence, Rhode Island. I think that's more of an Arkansas type of territory because Calipari's big Northeast guy. You have to lean Kansas because they're just Kansas. Arkansas just really. I think this is a situation where Dickinson has a good game, wins the game, and then they're out.
Right. I feel the same way. I feel like if he could have his last college game be, last meaningful college game be a first round win against a team that they're very similar to as far as overall record and what they've achieved this season, and then he's able to put out a good solid stamp on the end of it. He's not going to be an NBA player. We've
I don't want to see a Bill Self apology letter.
That's what I mean, and we saw one already this year, and we bet them the next game, and they covered. He did that. If he sends one out, on Wednesday, I might take them.
Oh, well, I don't care what the spread is. I'm taking them.
If the letter is there, yeah. But Kansas is favored by 4.5 right now. It started at 5.5, so it's already being bought down.
Yeah.
Because people don't buy into the Kansas team anymore.
No.
And I don't either. But
everyone wants to see Calipari Pitino.
Right.
I mean, if you're just a casual fan or if you're a basketball fan that can't really choose, you just are choosing who you want to see against St. John's in the next round.
Right.
And I think more people want to see Arkansas and Calipari against Pitino than Bill Self in Kansas.
I agree. And speaking of that, quickly we'll go through St. John's, Omaha. There's nothing there.
St. John's.
St. John's easily. No, slouch to Omaha. This is their first time ever making the tournament, I believe.
Yeah, it's the first time. They got a good coach too. They got an NBA assistant, lifetime assistant coach on that roster.
Some good out of conference games. They played Iowa State. They played Northern Iowa, Montana State. They played UNLV, Minnesota. Those are good games for them. They lost all of them. They were close in some of them, except Iowa State beat them by 35. And that just lets me know what St. John's is going to do to them because
tear them apart.
I don't even need to look at St. John's notable games. They have one loss on their resume that I don't like. They lost to Baylor by 199 to 98 in November. But otherwise, you're just looking at slaying that conference.
And if you're looking for a one, like everyone's looking at these teams like who's got a dude that's going to step Kadari Richmond.
Yeah,
is just he's so fun to watch. I mean, this is a beefed up Penny Hardaway. I mean, just playing basketball in the team of New York.
And RJ Lewis is just a bucket getter, bro. Buckets, man. Buckets. And they play defense.
They got Pitino.
This is a
Pitino team.
One of the 2 or 3 teams that I think don't matter what style of game you put them into, they're comfortable.
Everything I love about
find it in that little, that 1 or 2 minute window where they figure out which way the game is going, and that probably 13-minute mark of the first half where it's like, all right, we've been playing for 7 minutes now. Like, are you trying to run with me? Or are you trying to slow this game down?
This is I don't know if you've seen it, the great the great white American hype.
Yeah.
With Damon Wayans and the boxing fight. This is Damon Wayans getting punched in the face. What, are you trying to embarrass me on national television? This is St. John's.
Yeah.
St. John's is like, hey, man, we're just trying to get to – wait a minute, you trying to do something? No, I'm taking you out.
If they're in the Final Four, I'm not surprised. Let's just say that.
And they're in the bracket with Florida, and that's a team that worries me because they're just hot.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, and you're going to give them 10 or 12 days to worry about you guys.
Yeah, and it's Patino. I love Patino. Patino's my favorite coach.
Their bottom half. I mean, listen, I like Drake. I like Texas Tech, but I don't think either one of those teams can beat St. John's. I just don't.
Texas Tech is the best chance, but St. John's is a better team.
And Texas Tech could lose to Drake. They could lose to
Missouri. They could lose to either of those teams. Yeah.
That's what I mean. That's possible. So, all right, let's make our way through this thing. We're trying to get through it. We're an hour and 10 minutes into this video. We're trying to get our way through this.
Well, those were the toughest. Those were tough brackets. Those were tough regions right there.
Those are tough, I think, and I think they're the two hardest of this tournament. So, without further ado, we're going to go down to back up to the East bracket. No sense in really spending much time on American and Mount St. Mary's. Mount St. Mary's they're like the 8 seed or 7 seed in their conference tournament. They had no business winning. Quinnipiac, Marist, Iona, they all pooped the bed.
I had Iona.
I did too. You Iona me a few dollars. American's a nice story. I bet on them against Navy. Navy beat them twice. They were able to come back and win that game. But, I mean, you're going against – I don't even know if Cooper Flagg needs to put his uniform on for this game.
No, he should not play this game.
He probably
the way that they're playing without him right now, they don't need him for this game. But they're going to need him for the game after.
Right, exactly. So let's quickly get to that game. Mississippi State and Baylor. This is another one of, if I had to say what the best 5 matchups in the tournament are, first round, this is going to be one of those games for me. I didn't feel that way about Mississippi State earlier in the year. I really did think that they hit a lull in the middle of where you and I used to kind of laugh about them even being ranked. I was like, this team sucks.
This team is getting all that SEC love. That this team was benefiting off of that.
Right, but I the more I thought about it, like they play good games. They're a tough team. I like Hubbard.
Hubbard's a bucket, man. That is a bucket right there.
I think that they play a style of basketball that's more Big Ten.
Yes.
Me. A little like heavier, you know what I mean?
Chris Janis, the coach. Right. He's a tough son of a bitch, man.
That's what I mean. I feel like that style, and Baylor plays that style of like what Big 12.
Such a disappointment.
I agree.
Such a disappointment. I had such high hopes for this team.
So did I when the season.
When they got Norshad and Omier from Miami, I was like, wow.
And don't get me wrong. I mean, the numbers are there. He's like. I don't know, he's like 18 and 12 or something.
Yeah.
What is he? Hold on.
But they usually have a guard.
16 and 11. You guy's a beast.
They usually have that LJ Cryer.
The guard that's going to hold it all down for them. Davion Mitchell.
Mitchell.
That's just they were. That's what Drew has brought to the table every year. I think he's one of the best coaches in the country.
He's an amazing coach.
So,
I guess he just did not have that class this year.
What's the freshman kid? VJ Edgecombe, I think his name is, something like that.
You can say that better than I can.
I think that's his last name. I want to say it's
the only reason why I know Norshad Mimir is Miami, man. I
want to say he's Edge and Combe together, or something like that. Right?
Yeah, Edgecombe.
He's been a nice surprise for them. I think he's probably one of their top 3 scorers. But they play more of a team basketball game than I thought. I thought Omier was going to really like just spearhead everything that they were doing, and the other dudes would just kind of come along with them.
They thought that like Jeremy Roach was supposed to be a lot more impactful for this team.
That's what I mean. Like when you bring in a 9th-year senior like that, you hope that that's going to be the dude that's going to push these young dudes over the top.
And I think Jeremy Roach might be looking ahead because he would love to go against Duke.
Well, yeah, right. And I think so too. I think Mississippi State's a better team. I think Mississippi State ends up winning this game.
Absolutely.
They got it at a 1.5-point spread, so they got it on a pick 'em pretty much here. And I think that's more about what Baylor has been over the last 5 years than it is about who they are right now.
I don't think they have anyone that can stop Hubbard.
I don't either. I think you're going to have a kid from a mid-major team that's going to make a name for himself because he's going to splash the tournament, right?
Yeah.
But I think if this kid can go and give Duke 20, 25, people are going to know who he is.
Yeah.
More so than just like the normal, like we watch college basketball fan versus, the casual dude who's flipping this on and is like, oh, Duke is playing. I'm going to watch Duke play, which is how, this, gosh, just watch college basketball, guys. It's not hard.
It's a lot. It's a lot more than just the number
NBA,
next to the team.
Josh and I are wearing our NBA teams because we're playing each other tonight. But this is almost a washed product, bro. I hate to say it. Compared to this sport, college basketball.
I love
Give me 8 months of college basketball and 3 months of the NBA, and I would be a super thrilled human being.
College basketball. I just need the NBA playoffs.
That's it. That's what I mean.
Give me college basketball any day of the week, and then just give me the NBA playoffs. I mean, NBA just don't know who's playing.
It's the equivalent to college basketball is January on.
Yeah.
The NBA playoffs. From when conference play starts, and these teams are really going at it every single time they take the court. You got 2 games a week in conference.
I'm the guy sitting at the bar with everyone's watching Sunday football, going, "Hey, like in November, like, hey, can you put the West Virginia, Toledo game on? Can I watch that game real quick?
Titans, man, I want to watch this. Like,
Can I watch Tarleton versus Virginia Tech, please?
Mississippi State, we got. All right, this next game, I love this next game.
You might be opposite here.
You got number 5 Oregon. You got number 12 Liberty. What do you got?
I got Oregon. Oregon for one reason. Liberty's a great team. They can score. They're a great team. Oregon's kind of like on and off. You don't know what team's going to show up that day. They have Dana Altman, who's one of the best tournament coaches that there is. He's going to have – I don't care what his team does. If he's in the tournament, that team is going to show up somehow. That game, I circled it because you have a Liberty team that's from Virginia traveling all the way to Seattle, Washington to play Oregon. What the hell?
It's not fair.
That sucks.
You told me that earlier when we talked. Not fair. Not fair.
That sucks. It's a late game, but still.
I'm probably thinking more of the point spread as to why I like Liberty than it is that I don't like.
6.5's a lot.
That's for me.
6.5.
Liberty also plays pretty good defense as a team. They're the games I've watched, their ball denial is pretty crazy. They make you catch the ball far away from the hoop, which is going to help. Biddle is a nice he can play from the free throw line and really score inside, but he can shoot too. So he's kind of a beast for them. And Shellstad played like crap like the last 3 games they've had, which means he's probably going to score 25.
He's got to blow up something.
He's a really good. And he's a floor general that you need. I like Matheny, the tiny little white kid that Liberty has. He reminds me of like Steve Nash. He plays just like him. Doesn't share the ball as well, but his flair for like coming off screens and taking shots is fantastic. Like if JJ Redick was 6 inches shorter, it's like that kind of game. So I think if he could get hot in that game, they could score some points on Oregon, and Oregon will welcome a track meet, I think. But the line, the total's at 139, which makes me think that they think Liberty's going to hang around.
They think Liberty's going to, yeah.
That's the kind of game Liberty wants to play. Oregon wants to be at the 150 mark.
I'm all about the location for this game.
I think the same. If we're just picking a game, I'm with you on Oregon.
Because Oregon just played the Big Ten tournament in Indianapolis.
Right.
They had to spend a bunch of days out there. Now they're going home, basically, back to the West Coast.
Right.
And their home base is going to have a lot more.
It's like Louisville. It's kind of like Louisville, just chilling out. They can leave the day before the game and go play.
Or another game we're going to get to in this bracket. There's so many weird location games.
We're already on the same boat there on that one. We talked about that one earlier. All right, so we'll pencil Oregon on through. Akron and Arizona. We've bet Akron so many times, Josh and I, and this total is completely indicative of that. It's at 166.5. Easily the highest of the first round. That's because if you haven't watched Akron Zips play basketball, they zip around the court. They can score, and Arizona will gladly oblige. I think that I'll bet that up until 170 probably, if I'm actually being honest.
Yeah.
I think that one of those teams scores 90 points. I don't know which one it'll be. Obviously Arizona's got the big guns.
They got the bigger team.
But Akron's got Johnson and Johnson, and those kids fire off, dude. They're good. They're fun to watch. For purposes of the video, we're in agreement here that this is an Arizona move to the next round, right?
Yes.
But Akron's going to put up a hell of a fight. I think they put up a ton of points.
It's going to be an exciting game. I think it's going to be one of the more exciting games.
It's a 7:30 game on Friday night, which is fantastic. Yep. That means everybody who's got to work, all the people who are not fortunate enough to be able to watch these tournament games during the day, that's going to be on your TV. And I promise you, if you got to get away from the wife and kids for a little bit or something like that, you want to go out to the bar with the boys, that's going to be a fun game to watch.
Yeah. Wow. What time is that game?
7:35 on Friday night.
You know what game's going on at the exact same time?
What?
Marquette, New Mexico.
That's fantastic. Yeah, see?
So both of them are 10 minutes apart.
I love thank God for YouTube TV and the quad box. Wow. Please, that's going to be rocking.
Florida plays at 6:50 on that day also.
That's what I mean. So you'll be into the second half and in blowout zone by that point.
Those two games. Those are two of my favorite games in the first round. They're all at the same time.
Me too. All right, let's get to the other game you were talking about that you know is an unfair home field advantage. You got a number 6 seed BYU, and people will say, "Oh, they're playing in Denver. They're from Provo, Utah." If you know anything about geography and know anything about elevation, BYU plays at elevation. Provo, Utah is above sea level.
Ask Kansas how elevation feels.
You want to take a team up to sea level and run around with them. Now, VCU is not a team that wants to run around. No. They want to play defense. And now the total's at 145, which, again, just lets me know exactly what they think is going to happen. VCU, as an 11 seed, being minus or plus 2.5, tells you that they're good enough to play with BYU.
They are.
BYU has been one of the better teams in the second half of the season, but at home. And they just happen to draw a home game. They're playing in the Nuggets Arena. 4 o'clock game, which VCU coming from the East Coast is going to feel like it's 4 o'clock in their bodies. Except BYU is going to be rolling out of bed.
Coast to coast, man.
Just I'm all over BYU as far as betting perspective goes. And
I love VCU, though.
If you put this game anywhere else, I would take VCU to win the game.
Absolutely. This game is in Houston. I'm taking VCU.
Me too. I think
this game's in Kansas City. I'm taking VCU.
I think VCU is a better.
If this game is in LA. I'm taking VCU.
I think VCU is a better team. I just think BYU's got a home court advantage that you're not going to be able to deny. There's no way VCU's not played one game at elevation this year. And there's no way that there's no way.
Much goes for VCU.
They did. I apologize. They have played 2 games at elevation this year. Guess what happened?
They got blown out.
They lost to Nevada, and they lost to New Mexico. New Mexico's a fair loss.
Yeah.
But they lost by 7. Now
they played tough because VCU is a tough team.
I think that BYU probably beats New Mexico. Probably. Yes. And it's an elevation game, but it's not like Denver's elevation. New Mexico's more like 4,000 feet.
No.
You're talking about like 6,000 feet. We're going above sea level here.
That was probably a night game at the Pit. That's like a night game at LSU Tigers.
Right.
Football. A night game at the Pit in New Mexico, that is not an easy play to play.
So,
but if you're a basketball fan, you know that. Like
VCU's got great
details of it are.
VCU's got a great team.
Great teams.
If you're telling me that this game is being played in Denver, I have to take BYU. And that's unfortunate to have a team with 28 wins.
If you really dig into the stats, everything leads VCU's way.
That's what I mean. So it's just I don't want to spend too much time on it because I think the elevation just makes it unfair.
Elevation is. I mean, I remember we witnessed this the other middle season. This was when we were like on the brink of like we don't believe in Kansas anymore.
Right.
And they went to Utah, got destroyed. Then they went to BYU.
And that was embarrassing. That was
embarrassed. And then
they won by 40-something in that game.
Yeah. And then the letter came out like a week later.
And then they won, and then they played tough in a basketball game.
And Colorado, they had like a game against Colorado and won that game.
Something like
it's
that.
Like, oh, Kansas is back.
That just shows you going out there, a team like Kansas, who's got way more blue blood players, a better coach. You go out into these elevation games where you may have the better team, and the elevation just you're gassed, and these kids are just running. BYU just wants to run and score, and Traore in the middle is an absolute hammer.
No.
This is going to be Richie Saunders has probably been one of the better players in that conference over the last month or so. Also, it just there's too much there. Max Shulga's fantastic. I love that.
Shulga's great. I love Shulga's really fun to watch.
VCU's just got a lot of really good players. This is going to be a good game. Again, it's just BYU's elevation, I think, gets them the home.
It's the only thing that's kind of pushing me to choose BYU. I mean, that and the fact that they're gonna shoot a ton of threes.
Again, we're gonna look into the numbers as far as betting purposes go, and it's gonna tell us to bet VCU is what's gonna happen.
Right now, it's -3.
Yeah, and if it goes to 4, there's no way I don't. But as it sits right now, I don't know. I mean, just to have some action on it, I probably
VCU is the better rebounding team.
Right.
They are the better defensive team against threes.
Right.
They also shoot the hell out of the three. They make, I think they're top 5 in the nation and made threes a game.
Right, because they're
BYU is like bottom in the nation and threes
because
given
they chuck up threes, and that's the thing. If they're going in, they're going to beat a lot of teams regardless of where they play. But
BYU is bottom 25 and 3-pointers made, defensive opportunity made. So they don't give up a lot of threes made. BYU is also 10th in the country in made threes. VCU is 11th in the country in made threes, and they're 42nd in the country in defensive and defending the three. So they defend and make the threes. They make the threes just as much as BYU, but they defend the threes. The BYU cannot defend threes. The BYU gives up and gets a lot of rebounds, but BYU is not good against the threes. And I think that's what stopped it. But the problem is that they're in the elevation, and it's hard to play in that type of.
It's unfair, but this. I mean, we got to go with what we have in front of us. But VCU, terrible draw for them on that aspect. Wisconsin and Montana, I don't see much in this game. Wisconsin reminds me a lot of Maryland, and that I'm glad that they lost that game in a heartbreaker style. They're not riding into this on the ultimate high wave where they can get snuck up on by a Montana's been a sneaky good team in this tournament for years and years and years. They keep getting in, and they keep sneakily giving people games. And I think he had an awful game against Michigan. I think Tanjay, Blackwell, Kroll, I think all those guys just get rolling and they get right against Montana here. I love a kid named Money Williams. So I think that's fantastic. Money Williams is a fantastic name, but just not enough scoring for me for Montana to be able to compete. They played Oregon, they lost by 30. They played Tennessee, they lost by 35. Yep. They played Utah State, they lost by 12. And outside of that, they haven't played anybody except San Francisco and Northern Iowa. Northern Iowa beat them by 30, and San Francisco beat them by 6. These are teams that aren't even in the tournament that are NIT teams that beat them. I just don't see the spread is 15, and I think they're just being 15. Nice about it. There's no way with a 15-point spread or actually 16.5. I apologize. I'm still taking Wisconsin probably at that number. And I think it's more of a first half number that I'll look at, something like a 9 or 10, and they just come out and they're too much for them early.
I think it's a lot closer than 15. I think that Montana shoots the ball very well. I think that Wisconsin kind of pulls away at the end. It's another elevation game. This game is also in Denver, Colorado.
Yep, that's true.
I think Montana will be a little bit more accustomed to it than Wisconsin, but
I think so too.
Wisconsin's, they're going to slow it down. I mean, they're a fast-paced team. They want to score, but I think in these situations, they just have a
total's 150. So you think you like an under in that game? Yeah,
I like the under in that game.
Wisconsin for the purposes of the video, but now looking at it now, I kind of like the under too. I think we might see some gas teams by the second.
It's an early game. It's 1:30 on a Friday.
Yeah,
a lot of those early games are under.
No, 1:30 on a Thursday. That's first day.
Oh, that's Thursday. Oh, it's Thursday.
Yeah, 1:30 on a Thursday. So they don't even get much turnaround time to get out there to Denver.
No.
They're already probably out there
Those
today.
early unders are pretty good.
Yeah, it's you don't see a lot of points in these early games. Another good 7-10 matchup here: St. Mary's and Vandy.
I don't know what to do with this game.
I'm on St. Mary's, and you know why I'm not on Vandy.
No.
We've talked about it every single time that Vandy isn't playing at Vandy.
Yeah, it's such a home court advantage for
It's
them.
crazy to me, the difference. And now, don't get me wrong, this game's in Ohio, so it's not fair for St. Mary's, the better seed, to travel all the way across the freaking country.
Yeah.
But half their players came from halfway across the world to be on their team, so I don't think that really matters.
It's the Australian national under 18
That's the Australian New Zealand national team
playing
against Vanderbilt, basically. St. Mary's -4.5, I think, is a good number.
Great number.
Total set at 135 is a real St. Mary's game.
Yes.
They want to. I've taken the first half under in several of their games, and it almost always hits as long as Gonzaga's not involved in it. That's
the only time people watch them is when they play Gonzaga.
That's what I think. Vandy's going to come out and probably score 25 or 30 points in the first half, and St. Mary's is going to be right there with them. And then, I think the better players play for St. Mary's.
They do.
I hate to say that, Vandy being an SEC team and all, but
Vandy's won some big games.
They have won some big games.
Should not have beat.
But where do they win them at?
A lot of them are home, and that's. I don't know if anyone's ever watched Vanderbilt home games, but it's just a weird. The court is risen, and the benches are at the ends. So if you're at the free throw line, you're getting yelled at by your coach because he's literally 4 feet from you.
Right.
He's not on the sidelines. He's not in the underneath the court. They're all above the court at the ends of the court.
It's like that weird Final Four thing they always do, where the raised court is at the Final Four. That's how Vandy plays all the time.
All the time.
Where you got to
the kids have to jump on top of the court.
Climb up steps to get up onto the court. I mean, let's see. They beat Tennessee at home.
Yeah,
they throttled by Alabama at Alabama. They beat Kentucky at home.
At home. Lost
at Florida. Close game with Auburn until the second half at home. Lost at Tennessee. They beat Texas A&M at Texas A&M. That's probably their signature win outside of the Tennessee win.
I took
they have 2 nice wins, but then if you look at SMU, they beat Nebraska, who's a pretty formidable team. Probably should have made the tournament.
Should have made the tournament. Didn't make the conference tournament.
Right, didn't make the conference tournament. That's what I mean, and they're a legit team.
Yeah,
they beat USC. They beat Utah. Lost 2-point game to Boise State. Lost a close game to Utah State, and then they beat Gonzaga 2 out of 3 times. So they've had a good schedule.
They're a tough team.
They just play really slow.
They're playing against a team that invented slowness.
They lost last year as a 5 seed in the first round.
Yeah.
I think that they come and they got the same kids. I think they come back and they're fired up, and I think they take care of Andy.
Yeah.
I like St. Mary's in that game.
I'm picking a lot of SEC teams to lose, but these matchups do not go their way.
No, I agree. And last but not least, we'll jump on one more SEC team. The team probably playing the worst out of anybody that's ranked highly. Alabama has not found their footing over the last month. They haven't been a good basketball team. They take on a Robert Morris team that, listen, we rode Robert Morris a lot of times in the playoffs. Pause. Hey, yo,
Bobby.
Hey, but Bobby Moe gave us some nice wins. But I don't think they get one here. Alabama -22.5. I don't know if that's laughable because it's way too many points.
It's not high enough.
I don't know. I don't know if it is. I just Robert Morris is going to have nothing for them, and Alabama's got to get a get-right game, and this is it for them. Because if they win this, they got to go play St. Mary's, which is not fair. Dude.
They're going to win by 40, and then Sears has to step up against St. Mary's in the next round.
That's what it's going to be. Yep. So Alabama over Robert Morris, and then
early game too, 12:40 on Friday.
Yep. And then we'll get into our last round here. We've got about 25 minutes left here. So
go through this.
Let's get through this one quick, and then we'll get out of here with you guys. Thanks for sticking around. If you're here at this point in the video, you're a real one.
Hey, Cats is on me.
Cats is on you. Hey, Houston and Southern Illinois University of Edwardsville or Southern Indiana, wherever the hell they are, they're out of the tournament. Is where they are.
That game would be over before you even say their entire name.
28.5. I don't know if that's enough. The total's at 126. Probably look at a Houston team total over, or maybe a the Edwardsville team total under. One of those two is probably going to be interesting.
Under 50 was the team total I saw.
Yeah, then it might be. But one of those, they might backdoor that line.
That's 80 to 42. Maybe.
That's a 30.
No low ball in Houston.
I don't know if you're doing that. I don't think Houston scores 80. I think Houston scores 70 and Edwardsville scores 42. That's a 28-point win. That's
right.
what they want. But we're taking Houston. Next,
first one to 43 wins.
That's 100% true. That's the line. I got a bet for that. I'm taking it. Gonzaga and Georgia. I think you like this game.
I like Gonzaga because Mike White is the coach of Georgia.
I think I feel the same way.
Mike White's never won a big game in his life.
Georgia beat Kentucky this year. That's it. Otherwise, and they beat Florida.
They beat Florida.
I
said that. It bit me right in the ass. I'm saying
that's why I know.
It was in Georgia.
Right.
We turned the ball over.
I know the SEC is a gauntlet, but Georgia's just careless with the ball. Careless with the ball against the team who
Mike White coach team.
A team who already Baylor, who we're talking about winning a game here in this tournament as a very close game, is a comparable 9 seed to Georgia, right?
Yeah.
They're both 9 seeds. They're both 9 seeds. Okay, comparable might not be the word. They're both 9 seeds.
They're both 9s.
Gonzaga beat them 101 to 63. They beat Baylor.
Yeah.
So, I mean, what are they going to do?
Early season game, I remember that.
What are they going to do to Georgia?
Destroy them.
They lost by 1 to Kentucky in a preseason game. Close game with UConn. Close game with UCLA. Lost 2 out of 3 to St. Mary's. Fine, but these are all really good teams.
That was a big one.
All way better than Georgia.
They beat St. Mary's when it mattered.
They did beat St. Mary's when it mattered. So I'm on Gonzaga. I think Gonzaga is -6.5. I think that might be too many, but I might look at the over 151. I don't think that's high enough. We got Clemson and McNeese. McNeese is that team that dances around on the internet with their equipment manager, rapping songs, and they're just gonna have trouble scoring points in this game. They went 19-1 in their conference. They didn't really play anybody. They played Alabama decent in the beginning of the season. They lost to Liberty. They lost to Santa Clara. They lost to Mississippi State. They barely beat Texas A&M Corpus Christi by 1 point. They did take North Texas into the 129, which is high for North Texas game. But I just Clemson on their resume to me, and you said this earlier to me, just the inside scoring. Shefflin's gonna just eat down there against them. I don't see how many. I don't see how
is too big.
Off the
Hunter's
glass.
the point guard.
Yeah,
they have both Hunter brothers in there. I think that they beat Duke.
Clemson is
a game that Duke wanted.
That bad Duke
wanted that game, and Clemson
won that game. It kept the conference a 1-game lead for Duke, and Duke is clearly a 1 seed.
Yes.
And you have Clemson here as a 5. Is that that gap that big? If they beat
that was why I was thinking, like, how can North Carolina make this if they made a Louisville that played in the championship game an 8 seed? Right. And then they go back and they put Clemson as a 5 seed.
Yeah, Clemson should have been a 4, probably.
Where did those teams mess up to get such slaps in the face with their
Clemson's got non-conference win against Penn State and Kentucky.
They beat Kentucky and Duke.
They beat Kentucky. Duke. They beat Duke. They beat North Carolina. They beat SMU. They beat Pitt. They lost by 5 to Memphis in December.
That was
That's about, and that game was played at the.
That was, I think, I from what I recall in that game. I haven't looked at the stats. I think the big guys in Clemson fouled out.
I wouldn't be surprised.
I think that they were getting a lot of foul
Memphis
trouble.
Is extremely aggressive on the inside, going to the basket. It's Clemson all the way for me there. I thought McNeese. It's a 7.5 point spread because of I think people are feeling McNeese a little bit more than they should. I think Clemson wins by double digits.
Yeah.
134. The total is juiced to the under right now, also, which means they just don't think McNeese is going to score any points.
I think Clemson's a really good team.
Clemson is a really good team. I like them to win that game. Next game, I think you're all over the same pick. I'm all over.
Same thing with you. I'm with you.
Let's go High Point. High Point is Purdue is not good.
No.
Purdue has shown flashes, but I think people are thinking about the team that went to the national championship game.
They don't play defense. This is not a defensive Purdue team
at all. High Point doesn't have any crazy wins. Their resume out of conference is not good, but
they shoot.
They shoot the ball at this total at 153, which I'm going to take the over regardless of the game. But I think High Point plus 8.5 is crazy. That's crazy.
They're an extremely good shooting. The free throw shooting team is 76%. They shoot 36% threes.
If you
average 82 a game,
like
49% field goal.
Yep.
They're just a better offensive team, and this is against a Purdue team that cannot rebound or play defense. They do not have Zach Edey on this team anymore. It's hard for them to get away from the 4 years they had that big dude.
Right.
Where it was, hey, man, we're not playing well. Just feed him. The refs will call a foul at some point. He'll get 30 free throw attempts. We're going to win this game with ease at the end. They do not have that anymore. Right. Everyone's waiting for that Purdue loss to take place during the regular season. That Braden Smith was shooting lights out during some of these games that they should have lost, and he ended up winning those games. We bet their team totals nonstop all season because they were going to score, but they were going to give up a ton of points. And
which is exactly what they did.
High Point is just going to score. They're going to score a ton.
All right, so we're going to go Illinois, Texas, Xavier game.
And just one last thing, Purdue's going to get a little taste of their own medicine by going against a Bodo.
I love it.
Jocelyn Bodo, 7'1",
monster.
I
love it. I love High Point.
Can't shoot shit for free throws, but
I think High Point could give Clemson a problem.
High Point, it's a team. It's hard to prepare for a High Point.
I agree.
Very hard to prepare for that team.
Very sneaky 13 seed, and we get to see them early. 12:40 game. They tip off early in this tournament, so
that's going to suck for Purdue because
hasn't been kind to Purdue early in the games either. All right, let's go Illinois versus the winner of Texas and Xavier. Quickly, do you like Texas or Xavier?
I like the winner of Texas and Xavier to beat Illinois.
I do too. Something about Illinois, they've gone up and down, and I think they're
a lot of injuries, a lot of sickness,
right? And they're on a downward trend right now. Where I thought that this team had no real chance of being this bad. I expected a lot more out of them.
A healthy Illinois team is one of the top teams in the country, but that game against Duke just told me everything I need to know about them.
Right.
That in a big game situation, they're just not going to show up.
Right. And I for what it matters, I think Xavier beats Texas.
I love Xavier.
And I think Xavier and Illinois is going to be a really testy game, but I think Xavier gets it done too.
Yeah.
Without going too far into it, it's just a fate of Illinois, really, is what it is
Illinois.
At that point. You got Kentucky and Troy. No real reason to go too far into this. Troy has had a nice season, but they won a conference tournament that they probably shouldn't have won. They're not an overall great team. I think they did have a good out-of-conference schedule. They played Houston. They played Oregon. They played Arkansas. They didn't compete in any of those games. They lost by almost 20 in every one of those games. They didn't score any points. Arkansas, they scored 49. Houston, they scored 42. And you're going to play against a Kentucky team that likes to score 90 points.
They're going to run up and down the court.
If you can't score and you're going to play a team that likes to run around and score, Troy's got one game they scored 94, 78, but they still gave up 81 to Arkansas State. Yeah. It's terrible. No, just Kentucky's resume doesn't even. I don't even bother looking at Kentucky.
I'm not a big fan of this year's Kentucky team. I think Mark Pope's got some work to do.
They beat Tennessee twice. They beat
Tennessee
Duke
twice,
and they beat Duke. I mean, and they beat Gonzaga too.
I think
So
number one shaved points in the game earlier this year, but
I
that's
do
my own
too. Yep.
personal.
Yep. I'm with you on that.
He pissed me
I,
off so much that
I,
game.
I remember you telling me that. But we're for the video, we're taking
For the
Kentucky.
video, I'm taking Kentucky.
Yeah. I I don't see how I don't. Kentucky's only favored by 11. I don't
They got
understand.
some injuries. Their backcourt's got a little injury bug,
I
but
don't care.
they're still better.
Troy doesn't score any points.
No,
Total 152. I'll probably take that over too because I think Kentucky probably scores 85 or 90 by themselves.
yeah,
So you just need them to score, 60
that's
to
it.
get you up near that number. And I think
No,
that
they're
they
gonna go way past that.
then you're talking about a 10-point spread. Kentucky covers easy.
Yeah,
This is a big game here. UCLA and Utah State. Utah State has been a good team for a little while now. They've been a really good rebounding team. They play really good defense. They're in a great conference. You have matchups against San Diego State and New Mexico and Boise, Colorado State. They lost to Colorado State. They lost to Boise. They beat San Diego State twice. They lost to New Mexico twice, but they have out of conference wins against Iowa, St. Mary's.
yep.
So Utah State has got a good resume, and UCLA has been up and down. UCLA is favored by 5.5 in the game. I think I like UCLA to win the game. I don't know if I like them to cover that. I expect this to be a pretty close game, but I think UCLA gets the job done. What do you think?
I like UCLA in this game. I think that after Coach Cronin called them soft, they started playing a lot better. I just think that one of the key things for me in this game, it's going to be a close game. I think these teams are very well matched up together. Utah State with the competition they went through in the Mountain West and then getting through that, they kind of struggled late in the season, but they went against some tough teams, the Boise State, the Colorado States of the world. And I think that the one thing that's kind of making me go towards UCLA is that this game is also going to be in Lexington, Kentucky. It's an East Coast game with UCLA and Utah State. I think UCLA just has more games on this side of the coast. They've played the Big Ten games. They've traveled to the East Coast a lot more than Utah State has. So I think that they're more accustomed to the traveling that's going to be done in this game. So it's going to help them understand the situation, understand what's going on in front of them, kind of gear towards their opponent a little bit more than than getting used to the environment. And I think UCLA just pulls out of this game. It's going to be a close game, 4.5. It's going to be a 2-3 point game.
I think you're probably right. I think that this game doesn't end up far off the number. They got 5.5 is what they have it at. I don't think it gets. I don't know. I couldn't pick a team, and I think you're almost looking at a pick 'em.
Yeah.
But I think UCLA is the better team. Utah State is probably. Where's this game played at?
Game's in Lexington, Kentucky.
So UCLA, again, what we were talking about earlier, and you were talking about it too, is that they've made that travel just being in this, conference this year. And I think that doesn't affect them as much as it probably would if they were just a team playing in the Pac-12 that now has to go out there for the first time all year.
I think Mick Cronin said when that press conference, he said that he's seen the Statue of Liberty about 4 or 5 different times this season.
That's crazy.
And if you
the amount of travel that they've had, it was crazy what they put up there
at Rutgers, and he's got to go at Maryland. He's got to play against these Big Ten teams
in the Northeast United States, and you're from the Southwest United States. This is insane. So UCLA is who we got through, and then last one we're going to cover with you guys before we get out of here. Tennessee and Wofford. There's really not much in this game. I think Wofford is probably. And this is no shade on anybody who's a Wofford alum or fan, but I think they're the worst team in the tournament.
Yeah.
I'm not counting the first 4 ends, the Americans, and because I think Mount St. Mary's is the team that it belongs the least out of anybody here. But as far as like conference winners, Wofford at they went 10-8 in their conference, 19-15 on the season. Tennessee favored by 18.5. There's nothing in that. The total is set really low, which I'm really surprised about. I think that they think Tennessee is just going to go out there and walk the ball around take their time and score points on them. I don't know what you feel about that as far as like the style of that game will be played.
I think Tennessee. It was the game they just had against Florida. I was tweeting about it. It just they called a physical tournament, the SEC, and in the championship game they started calling it really tight, and it really went against the Tennessee because against Florida the depth was there's a complete there's another ocean when the depth of Florida compared to the depth of Tennessee. But that starting lineup for Tennessee can really play basketball. They're a great defensive team. They good experience. They can really score, but those two top scorers they had were fouled out very quickly in that second half. And they need to get a game where because they're going to be going up against we think they're going up against UCLA in the next round. They need to get scoring. They need to start playing some basketball. So they are already hot. They should have been that was a game to get the 1 seed. The last 1 seed was against Tennessee and Florida. That's how good they are. They are basically a 1 seed and a 2 seed body right now. And they're going to put as many points up as possible. They don't score a lot, but they're going to get up there.
I think the same thing. I think Tennessee finds a way to they don't need a get right spot totally, no. But they really need to get back to their identity.
There's a bad rhythm that SEC championship game was just
right.
It was not their style.
Florida controlled the game, and they let them do that. And Tennessee has not done that all year. Really, they've kind of been the aggressor as far as like, this is our game. We're going to play this way. And against a lot of other teams who like to score, it's hard to slow down. And Florida didn't have trouble with it, which is why they're the 1 seed and Tennessee's the 2 seed. That's why that is the way it is.
And that's the conference play part of the aspect of it. These are teams that know each other so well that they're going to play tough no matter what. The 20-point game is going to turn into an 8-point game. They're just going to play each other tough all the time. But again, when they get into these non-conference, they try to they strut their stuff against these teams.
Right, and so I don't know that this that Tennessee winning that game against Florida would have mattered as far as them getting a 1 over Florida. I think that was already decided.
Yeah.
But Tennessee can kind of use this as fuel to say, hey, we probably are one of the 4 best teams in the country, and let's go out there and show it. And they kind of have one of the easier draws, in my opinion.
Absolutely.
I mean, I think that they can probably beat UCLA pretty easily if UCLA is the team to get through. And then you got the Kentucky, Xavier, Texas, whatever.
Give them Kentucky.
Out of that corner.
They are foaming at their mouth for another matchup with Kentucky.
And then if you look at the top half of the bracket, it's really just that Houston-Gonzaga game is going to be a style clash in its own. That's going to really cause one of those teams to be kind of limping into the Clemson High Point game. It sets up Tennessee could make a run here and easily get to the Final Four, I feel like, from this bracket.
Yeah.
Although I do think Houston is the best team in the country. If they're able to survive Gonzaga, they might have some wounds to lick.
Well, they're going to have to go through a tougher. I mean, they get through Gonzaga, they're going to have to go through a Clemson.
Right, and I think Gonzaga is a tougher team than Kentucky is.
Yeah.
As far as like having to go through a matchup. So, with all that being said, that's going to be the end of what we're going to talk about today. First round videos. We gave you guys about an hour and 55 minutes of content. Feel free to skim through it if you want to. We probably spent about 30 minutes on each bracket, which is about what we should do. And, from now going forward, we're going to get in the lab and work on some picks, get some spreads, some
over-unders,
totals, some over-unders, first halves, just feast on this board and kind of look at it from the way that we really want to, which is from a sports betting perspective, and then go from there. So, shout out my man, Big Man Krantz.
This is exciting, man. This is
it. This is what we do it for.
This is what we do it for. Sometimes good, sometimes shit.
On that note, we will see you guys on the internet, man. Take care.